committee or so we don't have any members of the public other than sort of beyond who are members of the public who are on the committee. So I'm assuming with that in mind. Oh, sorry, yes, we Trevor, you're new to the committee, I think, aren't you?
Yes, I was on it originally when it first started, and then through family illness and things, one of the things I dropped off.
Okay.
But I'm back.
Marvellous. Does everyone know Trevor? Trevor Bellamy? Hello. Yes.
Hello there.
Marvellous. Okay, fabulous. I think you know the rest of us. So, we will move on to move through the agenda. Does anyone want to record it other than what we're doing for the meeting for our YouTube channel? No? Okay. So, election of Vice Chair. I actually approached Councillor Wilson, who is unable to be here tonight because he's on holiday, to see if he was willing to stand as Vice Chair of the committee, which he was, and is willing to be put forward and voted in a vote taken in his absence, assuming we're permitted to do that. But if there's anyone else who wants to step forward of those councillors who are here, looking at Mary, Trevor and Darryl. No? Okay, in which case can I suggest we propose that we make Councillor Wilson the Vice Chair of this committee? Everyone in favour? Yeah. Excellent. He says he will show more commitment when he's Vice Chair of the committee. To be fair, because people don't know Councillor Wilson, he is very committed to the committees that he's on. It just happens to be on holidays. Fair enough, we all need a holiday or something. And he's cycling, so that's important. So it is an active holiday. Okay, so next item, election of members of the Climate Emergency Standing Committee. Now, we can have up to 10 members of the public who become co-opted members. I think probably a note for us in the future is to approach people further in advance of the approaching end of the year, so that then we know how many people are thinking of standing down. Because I must admit, I didn't expect quite so many people to come back to Jen to say that actually they couldn't do it anymore, or they weren't able to do it. So would you mind just recapping who's contacted, because not everybody will necessarily know who's contacted you.
Yes. So we've had resignations from John Queening, Kath O'Halloran, Steve Barker, Matthew Tully, Alison Morgan, Caroline and Steve. And I think in the emails I've sent out, I've put the reasons, but no, this will be used to Trevor. So John Queening is for family commitments. Kath O'Halloran has a different commitment on a Monday night that's made it difficult for her. Steve Barker, it's work commitments. Matthew Tully is moving out of the area. Alison Morgan, as I understand it, is spending less time in the Home Valley, and that's why she stood down as well. And Caroline
Anstey's spending a lot of time in the Cotswolds.
Yes.
And between here, so she's not here all the time as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that in mind, obviously we've got Greta and Fran here tonight. Are you both willing to continue on the committee?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. That's great. Can I propose then for the councillors yet to vote that we appoint Francis and Greta to the committee for another year? Yeah. All in favour? Brilliant. Thank you. Have you been made aware of anyone else? I think something was put on Facebook or climate emergency.
I've not received any.
No one's come forward. That's fine. Okay, well we are, just so everyone knows, we are able to add more people during the year. So if you come across people who you think, oh, I wonder if they would like to offer their expertise and views and passion and time to become part of the committee, then do suggest it to them. You know, we only meet 4 times a year, so it's not huge, regular commitment, right?
Okay.
So worth just bearing that in mind. But the size of the committee doesn't necessarily all about what we want to do. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one, which is if anyone has any personal or disclosable pecuniary interests. Anything on the agenda? No? Okay, thank you. Got any DPI changes?
No, none to report.
Marvellous. We're motoring through this. Anything to be discussed in private session? I couldn't see anything personally. No? So minutes of the previous meeting, so that was a while ago now, back in February, so we need to approve them and then they'll get noted at full council.
Yes, can I just apologise, because they should have gone through full council before, and I managed to leave them off the list of minutes to be approved. So they're a little bit late coming forward, and that's why, rather than noting them tonight, they have to be approved. That was my omission, so apologies for that.
Okay, that's all right.
Can I?
Yep.
Can I just, item 69 on the last one, obviously I wasn't here, the bit on cargo bikes,
Okay, yep.
6,900 as a grant towards thereof.
Yep.
What were total cost, you want to know total cost of the cargo bike bit?
Well, it's, to be fair, it's still raising funds to cover
Right.
its costs. So it's in excess of 6,900.
Yeah, that's fine. I asked that because, well, you know where we are situated, and we've had a cycle repair unit donated by Peak Park.
Yeah.
Some while ago.
Yeah.
It's been in use for a number of years now. But Peak Park are always interested in the cycle bit.
Okay.
I'm not indicating anybody want to go up Moss with a cargo bike, but on the other hand, they may like the idea of being involved and know where this group's got with it.
With that in mind,
Yeah.
do you have any contacts within the Peak
Yes.
District? Could you share them with?
Yes, so there's a girl there that has responsibility for cycle pathways, etc. So
If you were able to send that information to me and Michelle.
yeah, we'll give it a go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then we could share it with EPIX, who's the environmental projects in Kirklees.
Yeah.
And they may be able to get some sort of contribution, be it in kind or be it in, because obviously home
Yeah,
village is still within the
yeah.
valley, and that would be covered by sort of a delivery
The-
zone, if you
yeah.
like. Potentially, that was quite interesting because I don't think
Yeah, they do.
thought of that.
The Peak Park element do seem very interested in talking to and getting involved with other
Yeah.
groups which are marginally outside. There are 8 different councils who share, as we do, part Peak Park
Yeah.
and part local government from district, and so they do have a great interest in being part of
Yeah.
groups which are not within Peak Park, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they feel happy with that.
If you've got a contact, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah,
So
I'll sort
even if it doesn't lead to funding, I think the principle of sharing the fact that there's something we're
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
is an opportunity, because there may be, because I know a lot of the EPIX workers learn from it's called Cargo Dale in the Calder Valley, but it'd be interesting to know if there's other things going on in other parts of the Peak District, because there may well be, to be honest.
Yeah.
Indeed. Around, I don't know, Bakewell or
Thank you.
something like that. Brilliant, thank you for that. So yeah, I should just comment on the cargo bike, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, but I think everyone nearly, not you guys necessarily. For the Jubilee project, we were able to use the cargo bike, which was really exciting, 'cause it was sort of the first time it was used in earnest, because it was 2 weeks old, I think, when we used it. So Kim Warren, who's the kind of officer in EPIX, who some of you may know from River Home Connections and other things, she cycled it and delivered the bee bombs to, I think, 6 schools altogether. So she did 2 Mondays, and it was lovely. The interest that was generated was great, and the kids were very excited, and it does sort of really show how much A, it can carry, but B, how many conversations it starts, and how much people go, wow, that's amazing, you can carry all that stuff. And the best bit was in Brockholes, when Kim wheeled the bike into the assembly, and the kids were like, oh, what's inside? and Kim said, "Oh, I've got presents for you." She's got these bee bombs for everybody, and then the kids went, "Oh, you're like Father Christmas." So just think, well, that sort of thing. They will go home. Those kids will go home and tell their parents, "Oh, someone's amazing, like fairy stuff." So I think the challenge, as I understand it from EPICS, is to they need a bit more funding, which they're doing through some crowdfunding, but potentially if there's other sources we can point them towards, that'd be great. To just get the kind of systems up and running to mean that they can operate. So that they're keen to work with schools and transport things for community groups and that sort of thing to test out all the system, and then it can turn into a more, hopefully, more commercial.
And Hepworth, to see their former teacher
Indeed, yeah.
appearing on an e-bike was very exciting.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
No, they like that, don't
they
they?
like that a lot, yes.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So it's very much a home valley thing. That's the other thing I'd sort of say out of that. It's, it's not, whilst it's being led by EPICS, it's about being used in the home valley. Okay, right, sorry.
Can I just, sorry.
Far away.
Just a quick one on the minutes on point 212265. I wasn't here last time, but
That's fine. Yeah, okay.
it was the progress and action focusing on local action, where you've got comments made included. What's happening with those comments included, those actions? Is there any action coming from those 5 points, or were they just commented?
Hang on.
What number did it say?
65.
6.5. And for example, there's also one that Councillor Sheard was going to try and make contact with other local folk in councils and such. That I was wondering how that went.
Well, Councillor Shear's been given the details of the various councils to contact them and liaise with them. I mean, in the end, things get raised in the committee, but it's unless people come forward with proposals of things they want to do, then it's just a thing that's raised, and it's for councillors or individuals in this instance to take those forward and then report back to the committee if there's any decisions or funding required or new proposals or whatever.
So if we see something in a minute such as this and think, ooh, I'd like to develop that further, we can come back with this is how I'd like to develop that further.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't have any at the moment, but
Yeah.
it
So
seems
later on in the agenda, there's something about allotments, I think, and that's a classic one. It's kicked around for ages. People always say, wouldn't it be marvellous to have more allotments? Well, it would, but someone needs to take the time to find out locations, get some costs, get some viability, think about legal implications, all those different things. Talk to some people, the officers at Kirklees, and then come back with a proposal that says, right, I've done a bit of research. This is the information, this is the amount of money that it would potentially cost, these are potential locations, even if it's not a specific location, this is how you would go about getting a location, and then it becomes something we can actually move forward. That's, does that make sense?
Yes, great, thanks.
Is that right? Yeah. So it's not discouraging people from coming forward with ideas, it's just that, it needs to have some meat on the bones, otherwise it's...
Words don't make anything happen, basically.
Well, they may do, but
But I mean, obviously, bringing them up in the committee can often mean that people then have a contact or a connection that we can then build on. But,
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So sorry. Are we? Can I suggest we approve those minutes then, please? All in favour? Okay. You can do that. Thank you. Okay. So budgetary matters. So basically, we have a sheet in our pack, which is our current budget. So I think the thing to bear in mind is, obviously it's got the headings that we used to have before. This sort of is the way that council works often. The headings are set up for different budget lines, and then obviously it's much easier from a budgetary point of view to stick to the same titles. So that's why we ended up with things like waste strategy, for example, where we're not quite sure if we're going to end up spending anything, but we kept a small amount of money set aside. But effectively, we've got quite a lot of money, of which community mobilisation covers the cost of employing Michelle and other sort of things like printing, posters, publicity type stuff. Energy strategy, we already have set aside £10,000, which is in the earmark reserves, which is for Honley Library energy measures. And Honley Library is, as you know, in the process, very, very slowly becoming an asset of the parish council. It's taking a very, very long time. The expectation is, I think, in the autumn, that the final bits of paper will be signed and we can finally move from Kirklees to the parish council's ownership. It's freehold. And then the Friends of Honley Library will then be able to apply for that £10,000 to put towards energy efficiency measures, which were raised in the report that we commissioned.
The whole £10,000 is
Yes,
going to
well, up to £10,000, yes. So I think I mean, to be fair, the Friends of Honley Library are pretty forward. You know, they're keen to progress lots of things. So I think they're kind of ready to go, but we can't give them the money until it's ours.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah, and they've got the energy efficiency report that tells them lots of things they can do. Yes.
Yeah.
Can I, with regard to Honley Library,
Yeah.
are they, is the potential for us having the freehold on that now?
I think so, yeah.
Initially, when we first started, I was in discussion with Kirklees, if you like, regarding Honley Library, early doors, and they have no intention of giving anybody freehold on any of their properties. Everything prior to us applying with
Okay,
regard to
well,
Honley
I'm
Library.
not on the Service Provision Committee, so I may be talking out
Yeah,
of turn.
they most certainly didn't have any intention of giving freehold. They were going to remain leasehold as part of Kirklees' domain, if you like.
Okay, well,
But I'm hoping they are. I don't see why they shouldn't, to be honest. But,
My understanding is that it's freehold, but what I can do, councillor, is just double check that with our solicitors as to where we are in terms of progress and whether it is freehold or leasehold. And I'll email, no, I won't email you, I'll tell you about it.
we can do, but I won't let you tell me. Yeah, I think it'd be lovely if they are giving the freehold on it. That would be super.
Yeah, well, I was expecting us to have that.
Yeah.
As I say, I'm not actually on that committee, so I haven't seen the detail
Right.
of this.
No, I'm on that committee and I believe it's freehold.
Yes. Yeah.
But worth checking, obviously. I'm not sure.
I won't talk about the other earmark reserves at the minute because we've got agenda items later on those. But basically, really, the item with the budget is just so that we're all aware how much money we've set aside and the full council approved as part of the budget this year. So, you know, we
Can I
have
ask
money
when that's due? And that?
till the end of March. So it's the financial year. Okay, so I mean, we can refer back to that with various items that we need. So moving on to Michelle's role as current holder of the Climate Emergency Coordinator. I'll just read out what's on the agenda so we're on the same page. The Climate Emergency Coordinator role was established in August 2020, initially as a one-year contract, and it was extended in 2021 through to this August. The post has been a coordinating role with a set pay point of £12,000 for an 18-hour week, and is also really entitled to pension rights, etc. The same as for Jen and Rich, our Clark team. So basically, this committee needs to review the continuation of that role, and to preempt that because of the way parish council is set up, we have a staffing committee that looks at all the staff that work for the council. So in March, when the staffing committee met, it discussed the ongoing commitment to having a third paid member of staff in the council, and it resolved to support what our decision would be. So if we wish to continue the role, then we have the budget to do so, and we have the power to do so, if you like, because staffing committees can do that. What we also agreed on the staffing committee was that we would review the role. So there were two things. We agreed that in principle, if we wish to continue with climate emergencies coordinator role this next year, and we can decide on that in a second. And then as part of that, though, we should also look ahead, thinking in a year's time, is that the right role that we think needs to be in place, or is there actually a lot of other things that ought to be thought about since it's just been this 1 year? process. But what we didn't want to be is in a situation where just every year we just automatically assumed it was the same role, because I think as the committee sort of evolves over time and the parish council's activities change, then I think there's potential to shift potentially what the role involves. And then just to note the final point, which is that the staffing committee also recommended that we increase the pay point to 12,500 rather than £12,000, recognising that it being at the same level for 2 years. So, I think the first thing is to have a bit of a discussion on the role as it sits in a minute, and I don't know, Michelle, if you want to comment at all about how you found the role, or whether you think it's still...
Well, you mentioned about the fact that there's more support needed by Jen and Rich,
Yeah.
the clerks, and I think that that's actually the way forward for it, because when I first came on board it needed a lot of getting into a certain position, and now that position has reached, and so everything is kind of like set up to do things. It doesn't really need me to put as much of my time in to make those things happen. I've got those other projects that we'll get to it later, which will keep me busy forevermore, but actually the role of coordinating things, because we're not really doing major events and stuff like that so much now, we've downsized what we're going to do to try and achieve what we're doing. I think that actually long term role probably should be brought into being part of the clerk's role.
Yeah.
Is what I feel.
Okay. So, but in terms of this next year, from this August,
Yeah.
Are you still able to, willing
I don't know yet.
You still don't know?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I had the
No one's
conversation
told
and I haven't told, because I'm waiting to see if I get full employment from another person that I contract for. So I'm in limbo, but I have told them I need to know sort of July 17th or whatever. So, but it doesn't matter. Whatever happens, I will continue until such time as you find my replacement. That's my promise to you all. So so there'll always be somebody to cover it. But it's just long. As soon as I get the go ahead, I will be stepping down.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Just before other people chip in, I was just going to say I think a committee like this needs to, if we're going to deliver projects and coordinate, I think we need a paid role to do that.
Agreed.
I think there's, to my mind, there's the short term need to have someone in it, and I wouldn't like to be left with nobody able to sort of take on the reins of what Michelle's been working on. If that's still Michelle, brilliant. If it's not, because you're moving on to other things, quite understand that, and that's fine. But in my mind, there's two options, and I'd almost like to have them, keep them both alive. Which is, one is if Michelle wishes to carry on in this role for another year, I'm happy to appoint that role. But if she's going to leave the role, I would ask the full council, and I would take a proposal back to the staffing committee for the council to say that actually I think we could morph the role slightly so that it wasn't just a climate emergency coordinator role, it was more of a project officer and communication role, which actually wasn't just tied to the climate emergency committee, but was able to do more of the communication that is useful for the council itself,
Really
so that it's not tied to a committee, but actually in terms of delivering projects and things, we would have someone who's more project orientated, because at the moment our clerk team are they're focused on the supporting the business of the of the council in terms of
Got enough
say,
on
but
their
and I know that Jen and Rich are stretched already with what they cover in terms of finances and the meetings and the whole bureaucracy, if you like, that goes with the parish council, the administering of grants and all that sort of thing. But, and I think there is a need for someone who can take forward distinct pieces of work and do communications better. So that's just my thoughts on it. No,
I just want to ask Michelle, there are a number of other groups, aren't there, in the Home Valley, which are those main focuses around the environment and climate change. I just wondered how much of your role has been liaising with those groups?
A lot.
a
And-
lot,
and-
because I think,
Yeah.
you know, I was just going to go on and say, I think it's really important that there is coordination between those groups, because I think there is a danger of overlap, and this is my patch.
Yeah.
I think probably more of an outward facing role, as well as managing project. I just wonder if you agree.
Totally, and I think, I mean, we had this discussion with Greta, so that was one of the things when we created the website, it was to bring everyone together. So what we're trying to do is create a central point for the valley for where everything is, and that was when we went out and found who's doing what, and there was so much duplication of effort. I think now that everybody actually does sort of work together, and I think one of the bigger ones was HOT, and then HVCAP, and I think we've brought them all together now, and everybody's been saying, like, we're all doing the same thing, let's just all work together. So I think that's been one of the things that I've actually helped to coordinate, and I definitely think, to your point, if you don't have a person doing it to sort of make things happen, it will just all die and go into nothingness. And to your point, if you don't have somebody bringing everyone together, so every time we've done an event now, so the last one was by block, that was lots of different groups involved, and it was because there was me, who knows where all the groups are, to make sure, and HVCAP ran that one, but I worked with Sean quite a lot to sort of tell her, I'll go there, do that, do the other, how do you get things from Kirklees, all that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely needs that aspect of it, most definitely. But to your point as well, I think you'll find it possibly easier to find somebody that to do the climate court stuff, as well as if they know they've got other projects to do. Because what's happened is, with me, it's been like it's become more of an admin role than a getting things done, and that's like the project stuff is important and trying to get that out. So I think there's two fronts, yeah.
Because I'm conscious that the council's got other projects, like even giving life to the red phone boxes, for example. There's different things that pop up that actually are kind of a start and finish project, which I think having people who are good at following things through and making connections. Sorry, I'm just going to turn around.
Yeah, Michelle.
Yes.
Nice to meet you again.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I know you've obviously given this a lot of thought
Yeah.
for the future. Have you come up with any thoughts on hours? Have we enough?
Yes.
Does it need to be more, etc.?
Well, when I first started, it wasn't enough. When I first began, but I would say now it is. I'd say it's sufficient. And the thing is, it depends on which way you go with it. Because if it's just the climate emergency coordinator at the moment, what happened was you had all those big projects that needed to get done, and they've all been done. So now it's a case of doing the smaller, little and often, and therefore there is sufficient time within the job role to do those. I mean, the biggest project, which in my head I'm going to get it to a point to hand it over, is the database. And as you've seen, it's on the way, but it's a big job. But that's because that's an ongoing job, you've always got time to fill with doing that. So yeah, I think it's sufficient time. I did say to Jen at one point that I thought you might be able to lessen the hours, but if you're morphing it into a role with that, then no chance. But I think as it stands now, there's a point at which it could lessen, because after the database is up and running and just keeping that, unless we're going to do lots of different projects, then there's the hours that aren't so much required. So, but other than that, if you're morphing it into a job with the club, then no, it's you need the hours.
Thank you for your response, and well done.
Thanks.
Does anyone have any other comments?
Sorry, I mean, it's easy for the work you do to be kind of hidden, isn't it? Isn't it really? I just wondered if there might be some better way of letting the rest of the parish council and the people know exactly what it is you're doing. Because if it's a lot of like small scale coordination, it's really difficult to report on it, isn't it? And I'm not sure how this could be done, but in order to demonstrate the value of the value of
I think
role,
the big thing is, the whole point of my role is to actually prove that we're heading towards this goal. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze, and it might be 3. Oh, it's gone. It is to head towards our goal of being carbon neutral by 2030. So when we did the first things, it was really easy to actually show that equals that and that equals that. But creating a database actually But what we really identified is we have no way of getting the people that aren't already interested involved, and the only way to do that is to actually contact them, and the only way to contact them is to have a database. So it's a long job for a really good game. But to explain that, to your point, it's like she's creating a database. How does that work? But that was one of the massive things that was identified. That every time I wanted to do something, I had to rely on people happen to see the poster or happen to be a social media user or something. Whereas if we've got a database, then we can target people, and it will make a massive difference. And then all those projects that we want to do will actually be worthwhile. Whereas at the moment, it's just like a drop in the ocean, right? And it doesn't get anywhere, and it doesn't achieve what we want. So I think what I've been doing is getting the infrastructure in place so that then we can get to the next level. And then all the little projects that we do will have a bigger impact because we can get more people involved to do stuff that we couldn't before because I didn't know how to contact them. So that's the biggest thing, yeah.
I think also it's worth saying that database isn't just a value to kind of this committee, it's a value to the whole parish council, because then there's the opportunity to communicate about grants, for example, and it's an actually wider network. So even, I mean, like the Bright Green Community Trust, for example, which is question of rights involved in as well, but they're, you know, it's always that challenge of communicating with people we don't already know about and stuff.
Yeah.
Because people just hear things that they already know about.
Yeah.
You get the same old people,
Yeah.
same old meetings talking about the same old things, and it's trying to break into those new, you know, by connecting with businesses and other community groups, and then just having a means of communicating. Not so, I mean, nothing's perfect, but
No.
it's better.
But the other thing is, and I've just realised we've got, is working with the art, with the festivals in Home Valley as well. And I think that's been one of the most productive things we decided upon. Let's not do it on our own. Let's piggyback on the back of stuff. So that's another coordination of the roles. And there's, what do we have, 7 festivals in the valley? So there's a lot to be done through that as well. So yeah, there's in the festival time, you know, there's a lot of opportunity for a coordinator to actually work with other people to make things happen. Yeah, and then there's the other quiet stuff. But before I could do the summary poster, and we did all those different things because we finally got the plan into action. But those kind of all been done now. So it's now what we're doing now. But things like when Rachel did V-Bond, I didn't actually have much involvement in that. But so that sort of thing, those kind of little projects that are bigger impact.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So yeah. But you're right. It's hard to explain to somebody that I'm sat looking at a database for hours on end. How does that help? But it will, because it's like everybody will go, right, we can just email everybody, and
It's fine.
that's
You
it.
don't need to convince me.
No, I know you were asking in a supportive way. Oh dear.
So, I think we're going to have 2 different proposals, I think, to cover what I think is. It's a little bit of a curious situation, because obviously we don't know whether Michelle's going to stay in the role, but I think I assume we can just do that. Two scenarios, basically, and an agreement of how we work forward in each one. So,
But maybe you should look at it as me, just a
the
person.
role, yes,
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just conscious of the opportunity to shift the role if it's someone new.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because if you were to leave, then there's the opportunity to, because we'd have to advertise anyway,
Mm-hmm.
we might as well try and get what we want for the long term,
Shift it then.
rather than.
But personally, if I was to stay in the role, I'd want it to become.
Oh, I
all
see what
that.
you mean.
You don't want
Okay.
to shift it
Yeah,
anyway.
I want to shift it anyway.
So the role's going to change no matter what, isn't it?
Yeah. So personally,
Okay.
I feel that we've reached a point now where if the role morphed,
Yeah.
it'd be, that's how I'm feeling about it. So that helps you, doesn't it?
I just want to make sure we get the proposal right, so that it could go to, because we have to go to full council and
Yes.
the next stage. Because what I don't want is to give full council the opportunity to then decide that they're going to go next time and
Yeah.
coordinate at all completely, rather than going
But
ahead
then-
with the.
Personally, I think then
Role.
if you go back to them with, right, the role's going to be morphed into something to
Yeah.
support for projects and communication, then that's a stronger place
Yeah.
than just in
Well, I don't-
isolation.
Yeah, I think so.
So that I would be really happy to have a morphed role.
Okay.
So yeah,
Presumably on the basis of the same hours and the
yeah,
amended
Yeah.
paper and 12,500.
and to be support to Jen and Rich. Yeah,
I guess we just have to check that thing I'm conscious of, Jen, is that you're looking at having staff and options, aren't you?
Well, this is still then until the 16th of August 2023 we're looking at, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's about revising and renewing the contract then, isn't it?
Yes, I suppose so, but
Yes.
if the role changes to not just be a climate emergency coordinator, would that need full council to agree to?
Would you not, I worry that the role will disappear, like it goes to the council, someone say, oh, the emergency, there's obviously not enough to do, therefore do they
Yeah.
need that role anyway? So would it not be best to say the role is still a climate emergency role, but with the facility to help out as required and with the blessing of a vote from the council all the time? Could be co-opted almost onto the other position.
I guess we could, yeah, you're right.
Although
We
otherwise
can
someone-
maybe just append it, so it's a climate emergency coordinator with communications duties or something.
Yeah.
I think a job title would be a very important
Yeah,
aspect.
yeah.
Getting that wording right somehow or another.
Someone will say you don't need one, that's my worry.
Don't need a climate. Don't need my role.
Yeah, so if you go and try and morph it
Yeah.
and say, oh, it's the same role, well, not the same role, it's now a different role, the same pay scheme or whatever.
Yeah.
If you've got that much time, therefore that role's not really needed over there. And it'll need a different view from a different committee somewhere
Yeah.
to say, do we actually need that new role? Should it have any involvement with the emergency committee at all?
I understand.
Are they just going to say, we don't need a climate emergency because we can have save and have our own person dedicated to the council?
Yeah.
So you'll lose the climate emergency role.
Quite a difficult one, isn't it?
I shall leave that in your
the
very
way
good
it
hands.
is thought.
Yeah.
Because really, my advice would be it should go back to staffing.
Yes, that's,
Just-
yeah. But they then might just say, well, you obviously don't need this.
Well, I wanted the point, they don't meet for another few months.
They don't meet, well, staffing meets on the 18th of July, but that's after full council. And this is about renewing a role that's due to come to the end in August.
Well, maybe we should then resolve to renew
We do it and then
Role.
go back.
for this,
Yeah.
to allow it to continue in this, and then, but also recommend to staffing that the role can be changed within the same window for renewal with a slightly wider remit.
I think we need to change our first item we were asked to consider, I think we ought to put delete contract and put post in there, I think, because that ties us to the continuation of Michelle in the role, because I mean what we're concerned about is the post,
Yes,
isn't it,
the
really,
post,
rather than the contract.
Mm.
So I think probably that needs changing.
Right, so I think my advice would be to approve the renewing of the post.
Yeah.
But I think you need some kind of proviso about going back to the staffing commit, about you need a timeline for how this post might then be reviewed.
Yes.
But what I don't really want to do is find that we have to effectively wait another year before we are able to potentially change the role. That's the thing I want to avoid, because we have a habit with the council of just going, oh, well, we'll have to wait another year till we change it. But I think, sorry.
So I've got to say, so I'm not sure why in the third item to consider it says starting August 2023, and that time is down to looking at.
Right,
So I think that needs to be done before then. It's just what you've said, isn't it?
Okay, well, can I suggest in the first instance then that we vote to agree the need for continuation of the post of a climate emergency coordinator?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so we're all in favour of that?
Yeah.
Indeed, yeah, okay. And then, I mean, to be fair, if you hand in your notice, for example, then we'd be in the situation we'd have to call not necessarily this committee, but
Yeah.
because the council would have to then deal with the whole appointment process and all that sort of
Again,
thing
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
So can I then suggest we make we request that the staffing committee, or we'll provide a recommendation to the staffing committee that in the event of reappointment
Yeah.
of the role, there is an opportunity to review the responsibilities of this post and potentially align them with other activities required by the council. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yes.
And then, do I need to therefore put something down in writing to go to the staffing committee rather than full council?
So what would the staffing committee then do? Would they, if we recommend please review it, and they review it and say, oh no, we don't want to change, are we safe that there's still, we've recommended that there is still going to be a climate emergency?
Yeah, well we've I mean to be fair, we've approved it now.
So whether it morphs or not isn't going to
Because the full council's already approved the budget, and we've got the budget to pay the role, so really it's about us just saying we're happy to go ahead, so we've got the ability to,
Okay.
you know, after tonight we know that the post is there, but I think the staffing committee, it's about saying, well actually there's an opportunity here to potentially change it, and we will probably know by the staffing committee if it needs to whether it would be you or whether it would be someone else.
Yeah.
But from what you've said,
Yeah.
even if it was you, you would be open to
Yeah.
at least considering the role.
Yeah, that's not going to negate in any way the fact that we've got to keep the climate emergency
Yeah.
person no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's
No, I think that's yeah.
sensible. Yeah, good.
so. Are we?
Do we also need to consider the second
pay
second
policy?
item for consideration about the pay
Yes,
policy,
we do.
and just perhaps amend that to say if the current post holder stays in post, that we increase it.
It should be
Yeah.
increased forever, shouldn't it?
Well, I
Yeah.
suppose it's worth. Yeah, but then if the staffing committee changed the role and wants to increase the hours, if they did. Yeah, we may. I think we ought to reflect if it's the incumbent. I
The
think you're
incumbents,
right.
yes.
Because it might
Yeah.
be that the staffing committee then decides, well, actually, there's a raft of other things that we need that officer to do, and it might end up being another full-time role. I don't think it needs to be necessarily, but it could be.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's just simple that way, isn't it? That we clear that.
You need to leave the flexibility is what you're trying to say.
so can we? So, do you want to propose that, Mary?
Yes, I propose that, yes, we amend that second consideration that to be something like that if the present incumbent remains in post, that the pay pot is increased
To 12,500.
to 5,500 from 17th
Yeah,
of
got
August.
that. So
Okay.
is that carried?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
We'll have that. Right. Is that?
Right. So we've got three motions then. The first two of which I think you have already carried. The first is to renew the post of the Climate Emergency Coordinator for another year.
Yeah.
The second one is that the pay point for the role of the incumbent Climate Emergency Coordinator be increased to 12,500 from the 17th of August 2022.
Yeah.
And that's been carried.
Yeah.
The third one, to recommend to the staffing committee in the event of a need to reappoint, to review the role in the light of evolving needs. Don't like that evolving needs, it needs to be more specific.
Evolving wider requirements of the council. Wider.
Reflecting
Communication needs.
It's communication.
Communication needs.
the wider communication and project management needs.
Yes. Yeah. And what I would suggest is that I pen something to share with you in advance before we get to the staffing. I want to sort of, there needs to be kind of
Yes.
costings, all sorts of things that would be worked out if that was,
Yeah,
and I don't want to cut across what you've been kind of looking at.
yeah. So I'll put that in the minutes that that's something you will do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's your third proposal then that you now need to vote on.
You happy with that? Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you all. Sorry, that's one of those items that takes a little more time. Seemingly not decide very much, but it's really useful.
Still
useful discussion.
way ahead of the
I know,
agenda.
well, I know. I know, it's still a guideline.
Yeah, but I'll say it's still.
Brilliant. Okay, right. We'll move on to item 10, which is if it's not far, leave the car. Now, this was a campaign launched summer 2021, and I know there was some sort of posters developed with like circles showing how far things were. Obviously, as it says in the note, although a detailed campaign plan was drawn up, COVID restrictions meant that some elements of the campaign weren't implemented, including a possible rollout to Honley. The £1,000 remaining was committed as an earmark reserved for £1,000 annual council for further rollout for the campaign. The committee should revisit the plan and consider the use of the money to committees. So, do you want to talk about that, Chuck?
Yeah, so basically, we created all the stuff, but then we didn't actually roll it out. So the idea was that we created these posters and we wanted to be putting them up in cafes and so forth around Home First, so that people were encouraged to go. Well, I think they'll find it fascinating that they realise it's actually 15 minutes to walk from home and they get in the car and things like that. So that was the idea. But we had only done it very Home First centric. So part of the finances was to replicate it for Honley, so that we've got the two places. So that would, and actually we didn't do the things we wanted to do. So for instance, we were thinking of doing supporting Art Week. We would do that again. We've done all these walks that we've created that people can go and follow, but it was like we couldn't get them to people because the only way was if they happened to be on the internet. So we would do physical posters again. And then also we wanted to do things with cycling. So we wanted to look at doing like a proper cycle rally around Home First or something, or to Honley and back or something on bikes, just to promote it. And now we've got the e-cargo bike, we could do something with that as well. So there's loads of stuff that we can still do that this plan, which is very detailed, that we haven't done yet. And we've got the money earmarked, and now we're free. We can go and do these things. So I think that would be a really nice campaign. And actually, one of the things that now we've done the B-bomb things is something to take into schools as well, so that they can encourage mum and dad not to take them to school in the car if it's safe to like that.
Yeah.
Although you said that quite a lot of kids do actually find their own steam without cars, surprisingly. But yeah, so things like that. So there's a lot of different things we could do that we didn't do because of not allowed to leave our home. So yeah. Seems such a long time ago.
So I guess the issue here is that we've got lots of resources already prepared,
Yeah.
except for the Honley
Honley
one. We need to develop another map.
Yeah, and that I mean the design and that of the maps and things, that didn't cost the earth, and that's, we go back to the agency and we've already, we've got the design. It's just filling in different things this time, so that's not actually starting from scratch. And then just printing and deciding where they want to go. And we were going to do it as an event, but I think what we decided was it's better to just have it ongoing. There might be a launch or something big. The cycle idea was a big idea of sort of getting people to see something happen and go, oh, what's this about? But it's an ongoing thing. We just need to encourage it to be going on forever, really. But at the moment, nobody really knows about it. But the little bits that we did do on social media got such a good response. It was really, people were like, that's such a good idea. And then we've got, I haven't got it with me, I'm sorry, the characters that we created as well. We could use that for children. Harry the Hopper. So we've got Harry the Hopper who cycles and Harry the Hopper that walks. And so we could do things with that as well, making it like really cute for kids and stuff like that. So there's so much we could do with it. I just haven't, I'm just trying to get the actual plan up in front of me. I think I've given you enough of a kind of overview of it. It's a really, really nice thing that we could do now in the summer months whilst it's dry. Well, warm. Forget dry.
Well, it has been very dry.
It has, hasn't it? Yeah. Well, it wasn't in Huddersfield yet. On Saturday when I got drenched.
Can
so,
I
yeah,
can I suggest that because I'm conscious there needs to be someone on the committee who's prepared to take a bit of a lead on working on it, given that Kath has previously worked on it, not. It's a bit bold in doing this since he's not here to say that he wouldn't do it, but I wonder if it's something that Andy,
yeah,
Councillor Wilson, might be interested in doing as a
I
keen
think-
cyclist. Is a bit of a bold assumption. But in terms of, say, the designing, say, say Honley,
Yeah.
designing the map and knowing the distances and things.
Yeah.
Obviously, ideally, we need someone who's.
well, I
Or
basically
are
did
you
that.
able to do?
I did that
you
with
were able to
Catherine
do that?
before. It was me. I went along with her to the meetings and everything, and then she did the bulk of it. But we really worked together. We met a load of times.
Yeah.
I found it now, so that was the just trying to see if there's.
I mean, I don't want to foist an action onto Andy without seeing if he's actually prepared to do it. But I will speak to him about it.
But realistically, that is just it's mainly a coordination role.
Yeah.
It's not. We need a figurehead to
Yeah.
sort of like be the person that's going to own it, so to speak. But really,
Yeah.
I mean, we've already identified target audiences, how we're going to communicate out to everyone. So I said posters in local businesses, press release. We never did anything on that scale.
Yeah.
It says Home Valley Review in there now. Lamppost signs we were looking at, needing the council permission for that. Public notice boards we did put them up, but we didn't really do a lot around it and stuff. And the website we've done them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. The impactful event we thought of this mini bike rally through Home Firth and potentially onto Honley, involving push bikes and e-bikes. A mini market around cycling, so that was we reached out to all the different people involved with bikes and stuff, so we could do a day of cycling, like also like Peak Mountain Footwear, we could do walking, combine the two and do something around that.
Oh, there's a walking festival. in
Yes,
September.
there is.
Yeah.
That would be brilliant.
So yeah, it was thinking of things
Yeah.
like that. We've got all of those listed, and then we did some of the commuter footpaths into Honley and Home Firth, and we did some of those using Art Week, but then expanding that. So that was something I created as well with Greta and Kath went out.
We did some quiz questions, didn't we?
Yes, they're still on the site,
photographs of
but we've never
routes into
promoted
them.
that either, and stuff like that. So
That's
yeah,
what I was going to say now. Another council I know has done that, done like a quiz.
yeah.
And they cycle round to collect all the
Oh, things around, yeah, yeah. So and the
specific route.
and proposed partnerships were Art Week, Art School with Chloe Walker, Kirklees Council, because we'd have to look at the road close to that, and Home Firth Praticares because they have a walking group as well. So there was a lot of things we were looking at,
Yeah.
so like that. And then there's the library, walkers
Yeah,
welcome
Walkers
here and all
Welcome,
that,
yeah.
walkers welcome,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that we could do, definitely.
Okay, and it feels like we don't actually have to create any
No.
more resources
Oh, there's-
aside from the map and Honley.
There's Home Pride, U3A, walking groups, you know, there's so many people
Yeah.
that we can do something with and say we'll have a day. So the September thing, it fits perfectly, doesn't it?
It does.
So yeah. Is there an equivalent bike cycling thing that anybody knows of?
Well, the one that, it's not an existing one, but listening to the conversation regarding cycling, the one group I think we missed out on who will be available every single week will be senior citizens.
Well, that's U3A.
Uh,
That covers them.
right,
Yeah, but yes, yeah.
yeah, you know, there's a lot of people who are getting on a bit now who are cyclists still have the bikes
Yeah.
and would if there was a weekly run organised or something of that nature, I'm sure that would be well supported. Yeah.
They may have a cycling group in the U3A, or you know they haven't. Because
I
they have a
don't-
walking group, a big one on a Thursday morning.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
I'll look into
I've not
that.
heard of
That's-
one, shall we
No, I
say?
haven't.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. We'll look into that anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really important that something's done in Honley. I think
Yes.
it's
Well,
often
that's, it
neglected.
says,
I
yeah.
don't think there's any.
Mm.
There are no councillors from Honley, is there, on this
No.
group now?
No.
But there's the Honley Library, of course.
Yeah, no, we,
Yeah.
I did reach out to Zebra, she owns Zebra Jeweller's shop.
Oh,
June, yeah. I reached out to her, she didn't respond, so but I'll keep on with her as well, because that's the best
Yeah, she's
contract. And she's very good at proactive and good at
Yeah, she is.
networking, so yeah. I know a few of the owners of businesses as well, so they
Well, I
can
think
help.
also the EPICS found that
Yes.
Kim found the Honley businesses were more engaged.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I
Kim
think
has
most
got some
bike-
big
Absolutely,
connections. Kim Warren is with.
Yeah.
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 Mm.
Okay. So in terms of kind of support, Michelle, for
Yeah.
pushing this forward and looking ahead to say, be nice if we could link something with the walking festival. I don't think we necessarily have to have our own event.
No.
It's about trying to just join together with whatever. I don't actually know
Absolutely.
what's involved in that. All I've seen was a poster in peak footwear, and I walked past and went, oh, that's a good idea. It's a walking festival.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's
I get on
finding out
with
that we're
Karen, yeah. So I'll reach out to her as well because she's part of a group of businesses that are very proactive, kind of in the Holly
Yeah,
nature. So
yeah.
if I talk to her, then she's got
Yeah,
a group
through
of
that
people.
WhatsApp.
Yeah. So they're good. We'll do that.
So do you need anything? Do we need to approve anything?
No, because
Or
we've
is
got
it just we've got
as long as we've got the
money?
budget still, I don't think I'll need a lot more than
Yeah.
what we've got. 'Cause
Okay.
Printing, it's about printing really. Most of it is just on the phone and talking to people. The rest of it, really, I think. Yeah.
So do you want a proposal then about using that £1,000 because we'd need to ask council to release the earmarked reserve. So do you want a proposal about covering development of a map for Honley, printing costs, possible use of lamppost signs, posters, to cover all those sorts of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would it be useful if I just sent you the plan so that you've got
Yes,
all of the?
that'd be brilliant. Yeah, if you can send that bit to me, then I can put a cover on it that says basically full council, this is what we're going to use it for. Because I know when the earmark reserve was approved by full council, there were some questions about, well, what is it? So you've also got an electronic image of that map.
Yeah.
Home Firth, and
Yeah.
so we're going to do something like that for Honley.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, whether we end up spending all that £1,000, who knows? But it would be
I
better
doubt
to have
it, to be honest, but as long as
But
we've
at least
got
if it's released, then we're able to spend it.
Mhm.
And if you're able to confirm what the dates are for the walking festival, that'd be really helpful as well. Because
Okay.
it'd be nice to hang it on that thing.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Super.
Just
Yeah.
one idea that came into my head was talking about only. What about going a bit ambitious and including Meltham? I mean, Meltham's a small unit, but in many ways they ally themselves with Only, don't they? One way or another. I'm just wondering whether eventually it could embrace, you know, in both the walking and the cycling.
Meltham's got its own town council.
Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've already been because Tash Morganetti,
Yeah.
who was going to join our group, she's now working with Meltham and they're doing their own thing.
Yeah.
So she talks to me about what she wants to take to Meltham. So I can talk to her about joining up in that way, but we wouldn't get involved in all.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I was thinking more of an invite rather
Yeah.
than a full
Yeah.
involvement.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
because I just had a call with her a couple of weeks ago actually. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to share ideas.
Yeah.
Do we need,
Okay, so
do
should
we
we,
need,
yes, yeah. Can we propose that we recommend to full council that they release the earmark reserve and we'll provide them with some outline details of what the It's Not Far Leave Car campaign will do with those monies. I mean, ultimately it's up to us how we split that out, but it's the principle. We want to have up to £1,000.
Do you need me to put values next to the stuff on there, or just this is what? It's getting a bit complicated if I do that. So
I
just
think
put
just-
like I'll send you the plan
Yeah.
and then post it.
I don't think we need, I mean, they shouldn't, full council shouldn't be looking at the minutiae of that anyway, it's not pointless to committees, our money to then divvy up, but,
And I'll just put such as printing,
Yeah.
map development and signage costs,
Yeah.
which I think sort of covers
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
what you've been talking about.
It does.
Okay, thank you. Does that,
That's fine.
Great. Very relaxed meeting. Never since she didn't wear a jacket, Trevor. Set a new tone.
Blame me. It's all right.
Professional. Right, item 11, Living Streets Initiative. So this is one where I know Kath was the driving force behind it. I mean, Living Streets is all about people being able to walk and cycle more, so it's a little bit what we talked about before, but it's more about road roads not being dominated by cars and making environment more pleasant for everybody, which is all great stuff. But Living Streets is a particular initiative that involves various behaviour change specialists working with the community and encouraging new designs, putting planters, blocking roads. There's lots of different things that can go into it. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think we've got an obvious way of taking it forward in the valley at the minute, unless someone has a burning desire to do something in a particular village where they think we can, potentially pedestrianise an area, that sort of thing. It doesn't feel to me like we've got a particular initiative that we've got the energy, if you like, to push forward. I know through other conversations through our planning committee that Kirklees are going to be working with lots of local schools about potentially slowing down traffic around the schools. What comes out from that, don't know. But I think they're going to work with some organisations about trying to pedestrianise more areas, or at least, even if it's for short periods of time, get something called school streets, which is when streets outside schools are shut for a short period of time during drop-off and collection times.
Is this one of those things where we would have to work with Kirklees to get it to happen?
Yeah, I think, yes. Because in the end, if you're going to turn streets into something that aren't what they are already, on a permanent or semi-permanent basis, we need Kirklees to engage with it. And I'm minded to say that we originally set aside reserve because it was something that was in our original action plan, I think. But aside from sharing a link to the Living Streets website, I don't think anything more has really been done there. And my inclination is that we should say that actually we don't need to earmark reserve for that because we don't have a tangible plan of what we're going to do with it. Doesn't mean in the future we couldn't come back and do Living Streets, but I don't want money to sit in our budget and then be accused of sitting on money and not doing anything with it.
Is anything to do with flowers or planting or anything like that?
Not really, not unless those planters are a way of blocking traffic.
I was thinking.
Because to be fair, I mean, it doesn't mean that people couldn't come forward. Say if people wanted planters that were on the pavement, that could be done through our finance and management grants that we give out to communities. Because that's the funny thing about this committee. We don't really have grants that we give out as such. We're not a grant giving committee, albeit we've recommended, say for things like the public life, we're able to recommend them to the full council to give them. But as a committee, we haven't been given that power to just give grants to groups because the council wants to keep it all within finances, which is fine. It hasn't stopped us being able to give grants to organisations, but we've always had to do it as a slightly two-tier approach. But I think in this instance, unless anyone disagrees, I would suggest we go back to full council and say, we would recommend that this money is returned to our general reserves for this financial year.
Does that mean the council's general reserves
Yes.
or this committee?
Council general reserves.
There's nothing else we can use it for.
We're hard pushed with what we've got to spend it on things at the moment.
I mean, what it does mean is because it then goes into the reserves, then let's say finance and management, when they're giving grants, run out of money to give grants, with more money in general reserves. In theory, they could say, well, we'd like to spend some of that money back into general reserves on that. It gives the council more opportunities to do things with its money, because if it just sits in our budget and we don't do anything with it, at the end of the year, it'll end up in general reserves anyway, but also we'll get criticism for having taken money and not done anything with it, which problems with budgets.
Give it back.
So, is everyone happy that we do that? Okay, thank you. I know it seems funny giving money.
Yeah, it does.
I just think it's a principle. We ought to, if we don't have a real plan for what we're going to do, just sit on the money.
But I also think what that shows is that we're managing the money. We're not just going, ooh, we've got so much, let's keep it or whatever. It's being like, we're actually really thinking about it. So.
Yeah. Okay, the next one. We're now 1 minute behind. Right, but now we've got the nice happy. Right, the Jubilee Seed and Tree Project. Well, this is basically the Jubilee BBOM project, which I sent a sort of summary report on it out to everybody who's got these papers. Hopefully, better enough opportunity to look through. I think I'll read out the head points, just the key points. So assembly was delivered to 3,300 children across Home Valley, which is quite phenomenal when you add them all together. And you go, wow, we spoke to an awful lot of kids. And it's great. We managed to get into all the schools, which I still can't get over the fact that we actually managed to get into all the schools. It's a really good result. nearly 2,200 B-bombs, because there's still a few waiting to be delivered home that night, being distributed to children. And I know that lots of them have been planted, because people have told me. And I've suddenly become quite well known amongst children from random places to do. You gave us a B-bomb!
Piper of
You spoke to us in December. So I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who supported with the assemblies, because I know lots of people have lots of time to do that. So I don't think it's minutes to thanks to members of the Climate Emergency Committee and councillors who assisted. And also the schools have all been given wildflower seeds to sow in their grounds. So we're leaving them to do it whenever suits them, because that's the easiest thing for the schools, but obviously I'll be checking up on whether they've actually sown them in due course. But I think the main things that I took away from it, and I've put some feedback and lessons learned in this report, and I would suggest that this report is shared with all councillors, because I think it's important that all councillors have visibility of what was done. But I think the opportunity I think the way it made an impact was A, we gave people something. It's always nice if you go home with something. But B, we actually did the assemblies to go with it as well. And I think that's really important. I think if we just delivered the B-bombs, then people wouldn't have made a connection with the parish council, because I think it was quite striking that most assemblies where we asked the question who served in the parish council, there were very, very few, very few hands. And also amongst I think the other thing to bear in mind is all the teachers who were there, and a lot of them learned something because they said that they learned something.
Unfortunately, what you couldn't get across was we're not responsible for the roads.
To be fair, nobody came and whinged about it.
They did know, but it's like I just had that conversation with somebody the other day, and it's like they said, "Oh, the council doesn't do anything." They don't. They're not responsible for it. And I think that's an education in itself.
Yes.
I'd just like to say, I mean, I played a big part here, but it was up to
Well,
Rachel,
Yeah,
beautifully executed.
yeah, it was.
You know, it couldn't have gone better.
Mm.
The presentation, I thought, was absolutely spot on. The kids were vibrant and interested. They put their hands up for everything, and they were often mostly right on everything, weren't they? So, you know, it was heartening to see these very small children who knew such a lot about climate change, but they were so delighted to have us there and to be given something tangible that was so pertinent for the moment, you know. So just an accolade, really, well done. Thank you.
I'm going to done it without themselves. Consultation was good, so good.
Where did you get the idea from? You don't know. You just woke up.
Then I just came to me.
I mean, I thought it was the senior secondary school. I mean, because they got to an age where they say they're looking bored,
They're so
you know.
funny,
But actually, but it was encouraging that at the end of each of the secondary assemblies, a child or a young person did come up and said how interested they were and asked us that was good.
I have to say though, we're talking as if big, you know, at the end of the day, it's our age group in the middle lot that are rubbish at it. They're all worried about their future, so they are more engaged than that. Yeah, so I would, you know, they might be sitting there thinking that, but they actually do realise that it's their future we're talking about. So one would hope that they are a bit more engaged. Because we're all going to be gone when it goes to rubbish.
Yeah, and I think that it was quite useful for me as well, because I've got a son in year 8 at high school, and he's over the course of about a week afterwards, he kept drip feeding me comments that were made by class, and his view was the majority of people found it interesting and useful and learned something, and that was what was quite interesting, because we did things like those of you who weren't there, we did examples of things you can recycle, like what goes in your green bin now, because there's more stuff can go in the green bin. In fact, you can recycle soft plastic, and just other messages as well. And what was it? The 25 bottles, plastic bottles can make an adult fleece. Great fact. And recycling one thin can power your telly for 3 hours. There's another great fact. So there's things that stuff in kids' heads.
I haven't seen that one. That's the
No,
senior one. I didn't see that one.
It's nearly the same, but it's just the
Yeah, more things.
I made it
That's the
slightly
stuff
more.
you should put on notice boards just to stop and think moment, That's powerful.
But that was we haven't mentioned it, but that was one of the things that I was talking to Charlotte. I said all along I want to do things like if 10,000 people in the Home Valley just fill their kettle up for one cup of tea, it means blah. That's the sort of thing. So that is fantastic. You can have those all over the place, just people giving a thought for the day sort of thing. So
Oh, Rachel, tell people about sitting on the benches.
Oh yeah, because one of the facts in it, because I did in the assembly at the beginning, we talk about what the parish council is and what it does, and then we've got images of various things we funded, and then there's also we look after the red phone boxes and and 160 benches across the valley, and one of my son's classmates came up to him and said, "Oh, you've got to tell your mum. It's really good assembly, and it's really interesting." And I am going to make it my mission to go and sit on all 160.
which I think is brilliant. Yeah.
So you're like, wow, someone was listening. So I think it was really good, and I think and actually another thing, when it was hot weather last week, I said to my son, "Did you notice with many people using the water bottle filler on the toilet?" He said there was a massive queue of school kids after school. Because again, that was something which in every assembly it was mentioned. We talked about it, and in somewhere we had time, we asked people to put their hands up if they'd used it. And I think again, lots of people were like, "Oh, I've never really noticed that before." So that sort of thing, I think is really useful.
Fantastic.
A couple of bits have come into my head with that last few minutes conversation with regard to the seats or benches or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember when we first employed the DIY man or the odd job man or whatever you want to call him.
Maintenance contractor, I think.
That's the man. One of his first tasks was painting the seats, and they hadn't been in the job 2 minutes. We painted the seats, that was fine, and we finished up with a bill for a lady's suit. It was green striped, and she didn't like the green stripes, so we had to pay for the suit cleaning. But the other thing that came to light was a group that used to run with no budget in actual fact, but the little things they did made such a world of difference. I remember on one occasion there was a reflective tabard went to every child in primary school age in the valley, and that was rather nice and very, very, very well received. Really appreciated, and that wasn't at that time. It wasn't a great deal of money in actual fact, but because it was, as I said, that was a group without any funds. It were donations basically, but there was sufficient money coming in to do little gestures like that, which every little bit matters, and particularly with children. That's the area to push, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, schools are a great opportunity to actually connect to lots of people.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Maybe one thing to think about in terms of this committee, you could invite a student or maybe 2 students, to pilot from one school coming in to sit on this committee. I know they can't vote because they're not 18, but it would be interesting. You could call them associate members or something, but I'm just thinking about a way of sort of getting on to the fact you've now involved schools in.
That's a really good idea.
Yes.
That there will be
climate change
students
champion,
who would love
you know.
Be good if we could get one from each school,
Yeah.
in a way.
You might want to pilot it first.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'd ideally
I
want
think-
a year
Jen,
10.
10.
sorry, but I'm coming in again.
That's right.
With regard to a boy and a girl from each senior school, that used to work well with parish council meetings. We had head boy and head girl from the senior schools in the valley.
Not being putting a spanner in the works, but I think they're going to have to change that.
Yeah,
From calling them head boy and head girl.
Persons.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what they call them now, to be honest. You're quite right.
There you are, student leadership.
That was a system that worked for quite a lot of years, and I don't know why it fell into.
Well, at Home Firth High, I don't know what they do on the high, but they have they've got houses, so they have a house leadership team. They've got grey jumpers, so if you see kids with grey jumpers, they're like the prefects.
Prefect type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think they have a head boy and head girl as such. I think they have
Right.
they have heads of houses rather than instead. So there's more people with responsibilities. So it's better, I think.
Shows them how to do it, doesn't it?
But it feels like sort of a year 10 or a year
Yeah.
11.
Yes.
Year 11 to
Definitely.
GCSE.
Yeah,
Yeah, certainly do that.
Yeah.
I like that idea a lot. Because at the end of the day, they will help. We always sit like trying to put our head in the mind of a teenager, and quite frankly, we can't. And they are the ones that are really driving this sort of stuff. So if they came to us and went, well, if you give us this money to do this project, we can get it out to, and we'll get, and they'll create rallies and stuff like that, and they'll get people moving and make things. So I think that's a really, really good idea.
I was just thinking, our next climate emergency committee is in October, which does mean that we could approach the schools in advance of that
Mhm.
and see if Homley and Home Firth each wanted to send up to 2 pupils. And even if they didn't become, they could be almost guests of the committee, couldn't they? Because I'm just thinking, that's our meeting where we start thinking about what we want to do next year as well, in terms of what budget we want. So even if they just came for, the first hour or something, and we did a piece where they told us what they thought we ought to be able to do.
Yeah. And
were able
if
to
we give
just
them
ask
time
questions.
in the school, they can make it like everyone give the suggestions we're going to go and see Handbag Parish Council,
Yeah.
and we're going to present to them, so then they've got
Yeah.
enough time,
Yeah.
rather than giving it to just them. It's like they represent everybody in the school. Right.
Because I know there's always school councils and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm loving that idea because I've been trying to think, how do we get into the minds of people? Which, it doesn't matter how young you think you are.
We can ask them what to do with the £2,000 we give them.
We're just giving back.
You can always get it out again.
Yeah.
We can
We're
always
just
do
putting it back in the bank to get some interest. Okay, so can I propose then? Because I'm actually thinking there's also a good way to hook it in that we are, as part of the Jubilee project, we've done the wildflowers bit,
Oh, yeah.
but we're going back in the autumn to give them all a tree, which includes the high schools. So there's a reason that I will be contacting them in September time to try and arrange dates for when we do the trees, which is then also the opportunity to say we're having a committee meeting on the 10th of October so that we can work out what other things we can do in the valley to support addressing climate emergency. We would love it if 2 of your pupils could come along and talk to us, give the views.
Yeah.
And then we could just have the first hour of the meeting, could be just hearing their views and
Yes, but
potentially
you
do
have to
that.
restrict the time, don't you?
Yeah, and I'm not sure they'd want to sit through something great.
No, I don't think
About staffing or whatever. I think it'd be better for them to just give the opportunity for them to sort of present to us and
Yeah.
us to ask questions. And,
Yes, I think that's the best idea.
yeah. And then well, we can see how it goes. I mean, they get the long run, they come back. Okay, so is everyone happy that when I approach the schools to arrange dates for the trees, I also ask about whether each of Homley and Home Firth high schools are willing to provide some, well, it'll be up to them when they want me to attend on the 11th.
Yeah, let them decide. Let's not be restricted.
Yeah. Is that right? Yeah.
Anyone would be worked in schools or something.
I'm his teenagers.
Oh. Well, we're going to bring you some now.
Thinking of my salty nearly.
Lend him to me for the summer.
Oh, yes, please. Childcare, lovely. I was just talking about that earlier. Fabulous. Right, so I'm conscious there's a few other items here. There was about Jubilee projects, rather than us passing ourselves on the back of that, because we're only partway through. So, the tree planting element, I'll come back to the posters in a second, is basically we're going to give a tree to each school. So the intention is a tree that we'll plant, and there'll be a plaque that says it's a Jubilee tree, but also it'll become part of the Queen's Green Canopy. It's just you don't have to pay any money to become part of the Queen's Green Canopy. It's then on a map of Britain that shows all these trees being planted for green. So it becomes on a digital map, but I think you possibly have to buy the logo, but you can get it gets a little plaque that says Queen's Green Canopy as well. But I think we'll get that, and then we'll also get a separate one that says
Home Valley.
Canopy. Yeah, so there's the two things.
Yeah.
So, and it's got the date on it. So the intention is to plant during October time. So I think that's supposed to be the right time to plant trees. Now we're not doing assemblies again, but what would be nice is if a couple of us again can visit each school to plant a tree, and the expectation is that we can dig the hole and plant the tree there and have a picture with a couple of kids or the head teacher or whatever. So a bit nearer the time, I will contact everyone on the committee again and ask for people to give me availability or if they can volunteer. So it's not quite the same ask because we're not going to stand in public and give a big presentation. It's just if people want to come along. And again, I would suggest we only have 2 people in each location. We don't need lots of people.
What kind of trees are you planting?
Well, I was going to get the trees from the Woodlands Trust where you can buy packs of trees and just make sure that they're suitable for schools. In that I had one school who raised concerns about the type of wildflowers that might be in the wildflower seeds in case they had poisonous things. So then I went and looked it up and it was all fine. But I don't want to end up getting a tree that people say, oh no, the children might poison themselves on berries. So I'm going to check that you can buy some packs of trees. I think there's things like rowan, but I don't know whether rowan berries are poisonous. I'm not sure.
I think the word would probably
But I think they might.
good choice.
But there's trees that are good for, there are trees that are good for pollinators, and they're small trees. So basically we're not planting oak trees and sycamore trees or big beech trees. It'll be small, fairly small trees.
Have a little apple tree or something, so they get something from.
Yeah, but then you need several apple trees. This was pointed out by
They don't grow all
last
around,
time.
do they?
No,
They
they need to cross-pollinate.
Yeah.
So, but there's attractive little trees that can go in, because it's nice to have something like this. But it's
Did
also
you-
good for pollinators.
Did you ask the question, Francis, for a reason? As in that you were going to say, well, actually, you can't plant the.
No, I'm just interested.
Yes, I suppose I haven't chosen the type of tree. I'd originally thought fruit trees, but then there was the whole issue of, well, what's the point if they don't actually produce fruit because there's only one of them. So my intention was to go on Woodland Trust and choose trees that look nice but badged up as good pollinators. So again, that's the whole planting seeds to save the bees.
I think possibly going for evergreen would be nice. Rather than
What, a Christmas tree?
no.
But-
There's lots of trees remain.
On
green
one
all
hand,
the
yes,
time.
but Trevor, it's really good for kids to see and actually watch a tree going through the seasons and losing its leaves and all that sort of thing, maybe.
Yeah.
So, because it's all about education as well as
Yeah.
Yeah, yes,
pollinators,
could be
so,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot to go into the
A
tree
lot.
selection, isn't there? Yeah. So if anyone's got any great thoughts as to the type of tree, then do let me know. But otherwise, as I say, I'm just going to look on the Woodland Trust and see what the the smaller trees are. I know they, as I say, they do tree packs, but I need
What's
to
the
check.
height maximum you're looking at?
Um,
do you think?
What was it? I don't know, 12 to 15 metres on it, rather than trees that potentially 30 metres.
You can get apple trees that don't need to be pollinated. And there's ideal for gardens, there's home gardens. It says on Google.
Must be right.
Can I also say,
Yeah.
Woodland Trust do free trees for schools.
Yeah,
But they
better.
wouldn't be, yeah.
So they obviously know what's
Yeah,
what
well,
trees
the
is
Woodland
what
Trust,
trees.
yeah, no, good point.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if everyone's happy that I liaise with the Woodland Trust, and choose suitable trees that, we can get going the grounds.
Yeah.
Because also you can buy, with Woodland Trust, you can get a set of stakes, the right stakes, whatever you need to protect the tree. Okay, now, so thank you in advance for anyone who volunteers to come help plant some trees.
I don't think we should be doing the shoveling, we should get some kids to do that.
I know, but we need to bring the spade. We might have to
Okay.
borrow
You
the
need
special
a silver
spade.
spade.
It's a special spade
Absolutely.
that we use as well.
Yeah.
It's particularly pointy.
Oh, the pointy thing.
Yeah, I know River Home Connections have one, but maybe other people have
I'm
one.
sure. Loads of,
Because
yeah.
they've planted lots of trees, as we know, 20,000 across the valley. That's another
Yes.
fact.
Yes.
So the final thing is the poster competition. This was for the primary schools that we went into. We asked them all to design a poster, if they wish, about the planting of the seeds to save the bees. And the deadline is the end of the month, so the end of this week. And we're going to have a winner for each school. And the winner is going to be chosen by, I suggested the chair and vice chair of this committee. Although if Andy doesn't wish to choose, can I ask one of the other councillors to step in if they wish to help?
I don't know, there we go. Yeah. Put my name forward.
Marvellous, thank you. And the intention is then that each school will then get a framed copy of the poster. But I've already checked at Home for the colour print, and they can do what we sort of talked about, Michelle and Jen, the other week, which is we'll get the poster blown up a bit and then make a border so it becomes an A3 poster basically. So it's got the child's image, well not the image of the child, but the image created by the child, and then a border with some text that's about the Jubilee project and the dates, so that then the school, and then we'll get it framed for the school, so that each school has something they can put up on their wall, so there's something to remember it by, and then the child will get a copy of the poster, probably not framed, just the poster. So
We're going to add the logos to it, like the Queen's green canopy and so on.
yeah, we could do
So
that. Yeah.
it's making it too complicated.
No, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
we can do
even
that.
Jubilee, the
Yes, the Queen's Jubilee
Queen's
logo. Yes,
Jubilee.
yeah. Anything I can catch up.
Off the
Yes, and the parish council logo as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sort
Yes,
of
that's
hopefully
right,
looks
yes.
And the guy, got his name now, Tim, I think it is, the new
Yeah.
person at Home for Colour Print, he said, oh yes,
Did you know that Jean's actually still working there?
I know.
Yeah. She's not, she's practically my neighbour.
retiring slowly.
Yeah, very.
So the intention is to be in a position to announce the winners by the end of term, so the kids know who's won. But the actual framed picture will probably go back to them when the tree arrives, because otherwise it's a bit of a rush, because actually there's not many weeks left at the end of term. And each child who wins, so there'll actually be is it 14 school, well, there aren't 14 primary schools, but there are 14 different building, yes, there's 14 competitions, because Newmill and Homley schools, whilst they are one school, are in 2 different locations. So I thought it was, one's juniors and one's infants, so it's nice for each of them to have a, and they're the bigger schools anyway, so they're twice as big as most of them. So as a consequence, there'll be 14 of these pictures, and why was that named?
You're going to have 14 prizes.
Yes, oh sorry, yes. Yeah. And each of those winners is going to get a £10 voucher, and the intention is to go to the child and offer them a voucher from one of three places. One is Imagine, so the toy shop in Homeforth. One is Read, the bookshop in Homeforth, and the other is the Sweet Stop, which is in Honley.
Oh, good, you found one in
Yes.
Honley. Well
She's
done.
happy to do. She
Oh,
can do
fantastic.
vouchers and
Yeah,
contact
yeah.
stuff. So we've got 3 local businesses for 3 different things that kids might want. Because I didn't want them just to be vouchers for one business, and I didn't want them just to be in Homeforth. So yeah, it's
Scary.
scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
She suggested
Yeah.
the Sweet Stop. So yeah, so there we are. So that's just to let everybody know. Yeah. So I don't know if there's anyone else
Yeah.
to-
So written update noted.
Cool.
Arrangements for post competition noted. And then
And we'll publicise
You'll
the winners of the
you'll be
posts.
liaising with people looking for tree planting
Yeah.
volunteers.
Yes. Marvellous.
Just, I know I'm getting into this, but because I've been looking on here, it does actually say you've got a plan where you're going to put them. So the schools in advance need to think about where they're going to put them, because it's on the Queen's Canopy thing. It tells you you've got to work it out. And
Where you're going to plant a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my intention really is to go back, well, obviously I'll be contacting the schools about the posters, because they're supposed to be sending me scans of all the posters that have been done. I'm pleased to say that Home Village have already sent some through, Gemma.
Have they?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
fantastic.
Hey.
So I'm waiting, but to be fair, the deadline is until Friday, so they'll add any extras that they have. But then I would go back to, so sort of, it's good because there's reasons to keep going back and communicating with the schools. And I think also there's an opportunity for us, there's a couple of schools that really stood out as being real eco champions. There's Hepworth, we already knew about, and there's NAB as well, with their sort of allotment area and things like that. Blockholes, incredibly enthusiastic about green stuff. And I think they're probably the 3 that really stood out for me, as being really like, this is great. So I think in the future there's opportunities to potentially do stuff with those 3 schools. Or you know, or if we want to test something, we can test it through those schools. It's quite useful to know.
And if schools don't produce the posters, we just let it go.
Yeah, I minded if they don't produce any entries, I might ask them if they'd like to. Because we could then use one from another school as their if they want one. I mean, it's a shame if they don't have a single child that does both. But because I've sent them, reminder them to follow.
It was such a difficult term, isn't it? And I think it's a very difficult academic year as well. So
Yeah.
let's
Well,
hope-
we'll
let's
see.
hope-
We'll
let's hope
see.
they-
We'll
let's hope
see
they
if that
all do,
happens.
but yeah.
I mean, it's
It
partly
feels
why there's a
standard
£10
giving.
voucher to win, you see, that's a bit more incentive.
Yeah.
So,
If you don't get an incentive, in all the competitions I've done with kids, you get hardly anything in.
yeah.
Apart from those that are secretly want to be Lowry or something, so they always want to draw. But other than
Yeah,
that, you just
yeah.
don't. Yeah. So yeah.
Anyway, we'll see. You're right. If that comes up, we'll just have to see.
Yeah.
And I might contact the teacher and just say, look, do you want a poster at all, even if you didn't have a winner? Because we could just do a generic one with the best, what we regard as the best one across the schools that did enter, for example, if they still wanted something for them all. But it is nice if it's a people from the school. Okay. Anything else?
No, that's great.
Marvellous. Okay. Right, business and community group database. I know you've talked a little bit about this, Michelle, already, but over to you.
Right. So I'm creating a database. Thanks to John Queenie, actually didn't realise Kirklees has access to all the community groups. You have to do quite a lot of fiddling to get it. So I've got the list of all the community groups in the snapshot at a time, and then I've paid for one round of the database called Endol, which I could download all the businesses in Homeforth and Honley, and then now I'm going through and this is the laborious bit, is filling in the gaps, because of course some of them have got email addresses and telephone numbers or vice versa, and then it's finding a contact at the place. So then I will be actually reaching out to them, and then the next thing after I've done that, without getting off my bottom at all, is I will then go to any businesses that are not on those lists, physically go around Homeforth and Honley to find out what's missed off the list and fill that in. I thought I'd start with it easier first and then get to that. But I think the end-all list is limited companies anyway, so I'm going to have a lot of small businesses around that won't be on that. Then after that, the thing is to decide what we're going to send as our first communication with them. And also the way the database is being set up, it's like you can filter it. So is it a business? Is it a community group? And then is it an individual? That kind of thing, so that we can then target accordingly. So yeah. So I mean, at the moment I think it was 800. I think I've got on here at the moment. But and I was expecting it to be about 1,000. So now I'm just going line by line to tidy it up. Let's put it that way. So but yeah. So that's where we're at, and it is a massive job. But the fact that we've got anything now, and the other thing I haven't mentioned this to you actually is, in order to manage it, we'll have to input it into something like I want to say, is it SurveyMonkey? Some form of database that when we email people, they can select unsubscribe, because of course, because of data protection, we need to give them that option to unsubscribe. And at the moment, it's just an Excel spreadsheet, but we have to import it into something so that when we send it out to people, they can have that option to not be bothered with it. So hopefully nobody will, because one of the things we said with the communication is we'll say, please, we're only going to communicate with you now and again, giving you tips on how to be green and energy saving. I think that's where we'll start with energy saving, because it's so topical. And then, but we also got to point out that it won't just be from the climate thing; it's for the council as well. So those are the kind of things we've got to include. But and it won't be that often. It's just that we have no means of communicating with anybody within the valley, in the community groups and that. So we will have now. I'm just going to have a look how many I've got on here. Actually, I've just opened this. I hate having to put them on. Yes, it is. It's about 800 now. It is, in fact. For some reason, I can't scroll with this. Oh, I have got.
So is there anything additional that you need to
No, what I will do is, when I've got it so far, I will be sharing it with everybody. Actually, yeah, I can share it with it, because this information is all readily available in the public, so therefore I can share it with. So then it'll be a case of, if you know of a company that's not there, because it'll be advertised, then you can go, actually, it is at I've got to 900. I forgot, because I put 300 on myself on the community groups. And I know I've got another 300 to download, but you can only do so many a month, and you have to pay for another month. So we did budget for the year, but I've now discovered you don't have to, you just use it how many times you want in the month. So I'll just use it for 2 months to get it all done, so, which is great. 1,188 I've got on there so far.
Well done.
And also, when I was using it and downloading it, you can actually say, I only want active companies, I don't want liquidated or whatever. So yeah, so that's that number is a combination of, I think, around 300 community groups that I've got listed, and the rest are all businesses, about 800 odd businesses. So after that, and I know that there was another 200 on the system, but I couldn't download them because of the limitations. So I'll do that next time. So yeah, that's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got a database. It's a bit patchy, but by the time I've finished it, it will be something that we can really all use. So it'll be great. Yeah.
Can I just ask, is the intention that it could be used by other groups? Is it only for use by parish council business? I wouldn't be able to give access to the database.
I think we would
community
do.
groups
I think
who are
what we
wanting.
do, what Margaret Dale did. It's like, if you want it sent out, we'll send it out, because it's just like.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's not my decision to make.
Yeah.
It's the ownership of the council.
It
But
just because I know Margaret, they're making an effort to create a database, and I happened to mention at this meeting that parish council is creating a database. So,
Yeah.
it just seems a shame to duplication of effort, doesn't it?
well, Mary, just to let you know, I did approach Margaret and ask her for hers first, and subsequently I am now doing my own. That's all I'm saying on that.
Fine. It just seems a shame that if a lot of effort's gone into public money to create a database, and that if it can be used in some way by whatever mechanism, by other groups who are wanting to publicise things, or ask for
I think
information.
potentially we could end up in a situation where we said we would only do a communication a certain number of times if you want your thing included.
I was about to say that,
Then
yeah.
do it so it's within our control. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'd be a bit uncomfortable with us just letting groups.
Well,
Yes.
let's turn it on its
Yeah.
head. If
Yeah.
I was a person receiving all of
Exactly,
these
it
different
was-
groups
Yeah.
things, I would be really annoyed.
Mhm.
So we can make it the Home Valley Parish Council newsletter representing different groups that want to say something, and they can have their things included.
Yeah.
We do
Yeah,
an index of
brilliant.
what's going
Yeah.
to be in it, and
Yeah.
then you can scroll down to it,
Yeah.
and that's what we do.
Just-
And that comes into that whole thing about expanding the role of
Yeah, yeah,
communications.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a really good idea.
Okay, anyone else have anything to tell them? Okay, cool, keep doing what you're doing, John.
Yeah.
Happy days, and let us know when
Yeah,
it's ready to. Obviously, we'll need to work with you on that first communication when we
Yeah.
get to that point.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what's the most important thing that we want to happen or get across?
Brilliant. Okay, so item 13, any all updates, land use surveys, we haven't really got anyone here representing that, have we? More?
Samson Morgan, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I don't think she really did do anything other than what happened with Andrew's cottage, yeah.
My understanding was that she was looking for a few other locations to do a land use survey with the money that she already had from
I
other
think
sources.
Andrew was talking to other farmers about doing land use on some other adjoining farms.
I don't know if we were able to, could we ask Alison if there's any update?
I did,
I know she's now left the committee.
yeah, when she sent in her intention to stand down, it's while sort of saying, very sorry, I did say, is it possible that you could provide an update as to where you were in terms of the handover? But I didn't receive a response.
Okay.
Do you want me to
If we
find out?
can, yeah, we'll just say we just, you know, the committee will discuss Brody, we just want to check there isn't anything kind of that somebody else needs to pick up, if she's just, you know, if it stops entirely, fine,
Yeah.
but if there are things that are happening, it's just useful for us to know, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, next one is disposal of trade waste.
Yes, I talked to Rachel and Michelle about this at the meeting where we were planning this agenda. I've not done anything since, but it's my intention to work with Rich and certainly within the parish council office. Now that the Civic has gone for different bins for different kind of waste, and it is actually having recyclable waste taken away by Kirklees, we will get our own set of bins to make that so that we're also contributing to that. Okay, so that is something that,
So do we need to agree that if necessary some of the money from the waste budget
yes,
item
yes,
is spent
that
on
would be
that?
great.
Do you know if it's just a case of buying a few bins, if we takes up to how much are they?
I haven't looked, that's the bit that I haven't managed to do.
We say up to £100 for bins.
Yeah.
I just thought we're going to spend more than that on the bins. We can say we're happy for you, I mean obviously then in practice the budget has to be released by finance, but
Yeah.
in principle. So are we happy that up to £100 could be spent? I would expect it to be less than that, but.
Well, I'm looking, you can get like a set for £138.95.
Oh,
Um,
It's a bit-
It's gone. Why does it do that when you don't want to do it there? There you go.
Yeah.
Just a quick.
Oh, I see. Okay. It's not big one.
Yeah, it does depend on
Yeah.
how big you want them. So,
They're quite big, aren't they?
so and individual ones are 39 quid. So it is just I'd say 150 just to be on the safe
Yeah.
side.
We're happy to agree with potentially up to £150 for
It's
waste?
you might be able to find them for less, but yeah.
Well, that gives you a bit of, yeah, thanks for checking the inventory costs. I think it's worth doing. Okay, then any other community engagement or attendance at festivals? Obviously Michelle's already talked about the folk festival.
I'd just like to say a little bit about the art festival,
Yeah.
Earth Beneath Our Feet.
Of course.
Bev Adams is so committed to climate change, and there are so many elements about climate change, particularly an aerial display, I forgot the name of the company,
That was
in the
amazing.
centre. It was absolutely amazing. And they were demonstrating the fact that there is a mass of plastic in the Pacific that is now 4 times the size of the UK.
That was amazing.
4 times the size. And this aerial display was actually, I think you were there, but it was brilliant, wasn't it?
I
And
watched
the
from my
crowd
house.
were just engaged. Were you there too?
Yeah, I was at my house, I could see
You
it.
could see
I
it.
just watched it from my house, yeah.
It was stunning, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was.
Yes. Just bringing to life that fact, you know, in a way that was so dramatic and, just brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was a thing in Homeside Gardens as well with the climate.
Yes, there were quite a few other
like
theatre
climate
groups.
police type
Yes.
thing, and that was a really effective
Yes.
display as well. It was
It
brilliant,
was.
and it was just a fun. It was like the climate
Yeah.
carbon calculator game or something like that.
Yes.
But it was, they had fun outfits and it was
And
a
it
really
was
interesting,
plain-
diverse range of actors as well, actually,
Yes,
which made it
quite
particularly
disabled.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
with disabled actors. So it had lots of different dimensions to it.
Absolutely.
And
Mm.
I mean, my kids enjoyed it,
Mm.
and I enjoyed it, and it was,
Yeah.
so
No,
it was say much. But I thought it was interesting that it seemed to get good engagement from all the people who were around it, actually. And hopefully it engages with more people who aren't already all
Engaged.
engaged. And ultimately, it's all free. I know the Arts Festival wants people and needs people to give donations, but
yes.
ultimately it's free, so
Yes.
people could,
Well,
that's
it's worth 1,000,
amazing
well, more
fact.
than 1,000 words, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know one photograph can be, but that
Yeah.
sort of display, those
Yeah.
sorts of events
Yeah.
that engage the emotions and,
It gets you thinking about
Gets you
things,
thinking,
doesn't it?
yeah, stop and think, yeah.
I went to a festival it was in Bradford on Saturday, but the thing that struck me, they'd made it a leaflet-free zone. So rather than if you start giving out the leaflets, every stall had some kind of activity on it, and it was excellent, really. And I thought, we should do that because you just
That's why
creating
with
all
the
sorts
stuff,
of
everything
paper.
that I did, I was like, we're not giving out
Yeah.
leaflets. That's what I said. It's
Yes.
like,
Yes.
it's otherwise it's completely defeating what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
It's like giving out bits of paper. So, yeah, try to anyway.
Yeah.
With that in mind, for our printing that we've already talked about earlier in the agenda,
Mm.
is there any opportunity for us to make sure it's all printed on recycled paper?
Oh, yeah, I did that in the past, but yeah, we'll do that. That was one of the things I said, and also what we did is that's why we're using QR codes a lot, so that people just take a photo and then
That's
they've
a
got the
good one,
information
yes.
themselves,
Yeah.
as opposed to here's a piece of paper that you just throw away.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
Yes.
So yes.
Okay.
Very
Think about
important.
And then the other side of this is one of the things I find a conflict, because I don't want to print these posters off more than once, but if you laminate them, then you're actually doing a bad thing. But a laminator means that they last for a lot longer.
Yeah.
So I don't know which way to go with that one. That one's like a little quandary. So yeah,
Okay, well,
I don't think you can take this to the nth degree, really.
it just keeps going, doesn't
If
it?
you've got a pile of plastic, I can understand, but just a few posters to laminate, I think is acceptable.
Yeah, but people are always looking for some reason to say, why have you done that?
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, that's by the way. So, but yes, we'll look at that.
Cool.
I've actually the Huddersfield Literature Festival. We have contact because they only print on recyclable paper.
oh, okay.
So, and I'm involved in that.
Oh,
as
brilliant.
Well,
Well,
so,
because it would be good if we just
Yeah.
sort of adopted that as standard. really,
yes,
that we always
and that's
use
why
recycled
I think the
paper.
action plans were all on recyclable
Yeah.
paper.
Okay.
So, recycled.
Marvellous. Okay, so we'll move on to correspondence. Sorry, I'm just fine now. Discussing too much there. Right, the red telephone box outside Home Post Office. It's being repainted. It's basically recently been taken on by Parish Council from BT. It's been disposing of more of their red phone boxes. And it's going to be repainted on the outside, and it's now being suggested. There's been a bit of discussion with Wyn Harrison from Home Pride. He's very keen that it looks nice, which I completely agree with him on that. And there's a bit of discussion about what it could be used for, whether it could be used for a bench box or book exchange, all sorts of all potential things. Because obviously in Waldale, the red phone box is turned into a bench box, looks fabulous. I'm cutting ribbon for being there anyway.
Two of us to cut a ribbon.
Well,
Yeah.
but I think there's been a bit of concern that maybe a veg box might not work so well outside the post office and not just.
Also, because you've got hot edibles, so
Yes.
it's a bit of a conflict, unless they're going to come and put the stuff in there and just think.
So what I've suggested in the first instance is that we progress with I don't remember what the emails I suggested to our service provision committee, I think, or through full council when we meet shortly, that the money was authorised to paint it on the outside. So from the outside it would look nice again and repair the glass. And rather than calling something the veg box or the book library, it should just say Home Firth, because you can fit those letters in the space. And why not? And you can use it for anything. So it just says Home Firth in the white bit. And so, subject to full council agreeing that, then at least it will look nice from the outside, and then that buys a little bit more time for people to think about what they want to use it for on the inside. And but really, it was just if this committee has any thoughts about what I think could be used for, because I mean, arguably, it can be something which can just be used for lots of different things. So, like during the festivals, there can be an arts speech during the arts festival. There could be a one-person ukulele player or something, accordion player. You know, folk festival. There could be at Christmas. Santa could hide in the box. I don't know. There's different. You know, it could have multiple uses. But I think there was a sense, because originally people had said, well, maybe the Climate Emergency Committee wants to use it to communicate climate emergency things. But then we come back to the whole leaflets. We don't want it to be just a stack of leaflets in there, because it would just make a mess.
You could have one of these sound bites that were just you're just demonstrating stuff about tin cans and what they just those stop and think moments. You could just have a poster going up from time to time. That's paper, and it doesn't have to be waterproof because it's indoors, so it can be recycled paper, but it's got a very very important message.
Yeah,
And
the only thing I'm thinking off the top of my head, I love that idea, but you'd have it facing out from the window, and I think they're really tiny.
Yes,
Aren't
they are.
They're really tiny.
So,
But people will open the door and look in because people are getting curious about them. Sorry?
I think it's a good idea because people go in and out.
Yeah, they do. And the more you get into this idea of changing and just illustrating.
You could change the theme every month
Absolutely.
or quarter or whatever.
Yeah, we've got so many
Which will link
I can
into
think
it.
of lots of things that we could need to put in.
For the just
Just
the
a
climate
caption.
emergency.
Caption.
Yes.
Yeah. Facts that are around that people say, God, I didn't know that. Oh, if I knew that, Yeah.
Maybe seasonally related.
Yeah, local project, whatever, yeah.
All great ideas. Who's going to manage it and make it and keep it up to date? That's the question. That's the thing with these things. It's
Some
like
kind of coordinated with climate emergency whose role might expand out.
in all seriousness, it's not going to be me that generates all the content.
No.
So that's one of the things. Yeah, I can go and change the thing or whatever. But that's the other thing is it's more. I think personally, I don't think it's the best use of that box for the messaging of people. I think it should be an element of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
With other people's content and stuff in it. I don't know what else. I definitely think that's a great place to put that.
No, change other people's content. The theme is great.
Yeah.
And the management of it, I wouldn't have thought we want to do the management of it, just the overseeing of it maybe. So to get in touch with other groups saying, we're the climate emergency group, would you like a month of looking after this box? What do you want to put in it? Get it approved at one of our meetings or
And link it to the
approved.
school, the students from the schools as well. They could have an outlet there for some of what they're reflecting on to do with climate change.
Just
Yeah,
a climate
that's an interesting
change
idea.
box,
Yeah.
not managed but not looked after.
I think
Whereas-
the purpose of books is a very good idea.
Yeah.
British books, but we could make it climate change books. There's so many books on climate change. You could have a shelf where people borrow, like a library, climate change books. In addition to posters or whatever else.
I just trying to think of all the other things. I'm just trying to think out loud, but I'm thinking all the other things that people use these boxes for, people have a semblance of interest in it already. I think if it's just climate change, it won't work. If it's climate change with other things, so people go in and go, oh, there's books, oh, look at that poster there, and read it. Not just climate change books. I think we need to have, we definitely own a part of it that actually has something to do with climate change, but the rest of it is stuff, just like we said with the festivals, we got people to come along and then they found out about the other bit. If we say it's that, then people won't open the box once they find out. You know, it's just like,
We make it exciting. It's the climate change box.
I love that you're saying all of these things, but there needs to be somebody really creative to make it exciting and put it in there. And that's the thing. It's just like, and it has to be done regularly. And I'm trying to think
This is
about.
why we're farming it out to other people to do.
But it still requires someone to get the stuff off them. I'm being realistic about
Well,
it. I
that's
think,
different to managing is different to, you know, asking someone, would you like to come along, and then they get really enthusiastic and they do it. Is easier than, thank you for this, I'm going to make a poster, I'm going to dig something up. Isn't it? It's different.
But getting people involved and really enthusiastic. What I'm trying to say is that is the hard bit.
Well, I don't mind contacting groups saying, would you like a go at our box?
And you'll get nothing back.
I don't agree with you.
Right, you manage it then.
Oh, okay, I'll take that back. If you do that and no one responds, then you just abandon the idea.
Well, that's what I know. What I'm thinking is we can still do your element, but that's only one part of the box, and then the rest of the box is for other things that I know people will want to go in, and then they'll see that bit. So it's like it could be a 3-tiered thing. I just think that if you make it more of a little bit of this and a little bit of that, people will go in and go, oh, what's in there today? Whereas it's going to be something else from the climate thing. I already saw that last week. Oh, it's really pretty and exciting, but I know it's about that. I think it just be, I'm thinking about how I, as a normal person on the street, would be, not somebody involved in the climate emergency.
Just a couple of ideas. One of them that possibly would work in the town centre box would be business association. Oh, I'm losing my voice. Business association involvement with their activities, because they don't have anything. They don't have a shop window, shall we say? Whether that would be of any use, I don't know. But the one that I've specifically dealt with is Home Village, and that's a twofold thing now. It's evolved into a book exchange, but very much it's still a visitor attraction in that it's full of leaflets from tourist aspect, if you like. Now, the tourist bit, I wouldn't think Home would be the right place to have one, because there is already a tourist office. I know it's not open a great deal, but there is one there, and it's only a stone throw from where the phone box is. So, you know, whether filling it full of touristy brochures would be a benefit, not sure really. I'd have my doubts on that one. But with regard to the painting thereof, there is a specific colour of red. Do you know about it, Jen?
Yeah.
Because we painted one of the early ones in the wrong red. So it had to be re-redded.
I like the theme idea. I like having our thing, but I think if we make it even 2-tier or whatever it is, but because then you'll get people going in and they'll look at other things as well. So I think that's the way forward.
I also quite like the idea of rotating it around different community groups, giving a month each to look after the box. Because you could have the one who's got the festival at the time looking after the box. Or at least give them the first dibs of looking after the box. Because the thing I'm nervous of, I suppose, is people trashing it. Because of where it is, and people weeing in it. Because it's very, very different to the ones in the villages, which are quite isolated.
And don't forget,
and have people looking at them all the
we have
time.
a lot of people getting drunk on a Saturday night.
And Friday nights,
And I
There's
think
normally
books will end
something
up
locked
better.
into the river on those nights.
And look at the bike thing that we're trying to get rid of. What's it called? The bike lock. But then we could put a lock on it at night.
It is really difficult to put a lock on, but I think the one in Waldale they've managed to do something fine.
Yes.
So I'm going to.
They took out the bottom pane on the door and then the adjacent pane on the side,
Yeah.
so you can put a chain right through it, and that's how.
In which case, can we recommend that a similar thing is done?
Yeah, and
books as well.
It's sort of seed and vegetable attitude.
Yeah.
it's so close to the loos. I wonder if when
Lots
the
of
loos are
toilets.
locked up on the Saturday,
Could be locked.
that could be locked up as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
That's good.
Can we
It
include that in
definitely
what
has
goes
to be
to
locked.
Yeah.
full council's recommendation? Because I think also then there's the opportunity to potentially give the, if a festival takes on the box for a month, then they can just look after it.
Yeah.
And it might be that we say, well, actually, no, we'll we can cover all the months when there aren't festivals happening in terms of with interesting messages and stuff. But it'd be quite interesting because it would allow that creativity of people, and if different, I mean, they could very well be green community groups that came forward and did something in the box.
But I think even what I was trying to say is even when we give it to other people, just because we say we'll do it in, we should still have our
Yeah,
like power messages in there,
Yeah.
and then they can use the rest of it, sort of thing. I think. Yeah.
I mean, don't forget we have also got a notice board outside the toilets. We could make better use of with our power messages.
Well, to your point about the thing outside the toilet, only because I work for the council and wanted to put some things in, I've never spotted it before. I walked past it lots of times
Yeah.
because I never use the public toilets.
Yeah.
And so I'm just saying it's
Yeah.
just like, I think the phone box is more noticeable when they changed into not being a phone box anymore. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think the opportunity for it moving round groups.
So
goes
when
through.
when is it ours now?
Well, it's ours now, but it's yet to be renovated. So until full council approves the spending of the money to paint it, fix the windows, all that sort of thing, and put in the opportunity to lock,
Yeah.
then that will have to happen over the summer, and then it will probably in practice be ready to use, September.
I'm thinking the walk.
Yeah.
We say that the walk
They
festival
can all
is the
start
first
in
time
the
that we
box.
do the box, and then it's like then we can work with them to get stuff in there, and we don't have to do it all.
Sounds good to me.
I can say something, Jack?
Yep.
So what I'm going to suggest then is that your proposal is about going to full council to repaint and repair without signage, but also to full council to provisionally propose this monthly fee so that we can start setting out which festivals and so forth. And I'll email or speak to the chair of service provision beforehand regarding these proposals.
Can I just check, so without signage, what do we mean by without signage?
Without deciding, like the Waldale one is called the veg
Oh,
box,
I think we should just have home first, personally,
just home first.
because I think that gives it maximum flexibility. Don't know what people think.
No, good idea.
Because then it can be anything, can't it?
Yeah.
Rather than, and it's no reason it can't be climate change, but tempting
Can we
as
call
is
it
to
something
write
like
green
Home
on it.
First Community Box or something to make it sort of something about it to make it this is for the people. I don't know if that's not necessarily the right words, but I don't know. I'm happy to leave it. I'm happy with the idea of it's Home First, but I just think
So like community box.
just something to make it
Community box, yeah.
Community box is a good idea.
How many sides are there that you can see?
3.
For some of them you can only see 2. I just think depending on the angle of the box, I can't remember. Anyway.
It's the boxes by
Well, it can either be home first community box or just community box.
yeah
Could do that.
I'm just
Because it
wondering
depends on the
if it will fit.
community.
Home first
It is
bit,
on
because it is 7
telephone,
letters.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
telephone,
telephone.
isn't it?
Oh, that's
Well done, mate.
Yeah, community, actually community box would be better.
That's nice.
Yeah. And if there is a third side, but I don't know if there is a third side, so home first community box.
I don't know. In my head, there's the door and the 2 sides here, and then the other bit is at the back with a wall to it, so it's got 3 sides in my head. Yeah.
So that's fine, home first community box. Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Anyway, yeah, full council will probably check it out and come up with something else. Hopefully not. Anyway, we've had a good discussion about it, I think. And I think it's the opportunity, it's all like a merge of all those ideas. Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really nice to have those. Okay, final item, items for publicity. Well, to be honest, we've kind of covered those things already.
Yeah.
And I know Michelle's recently sent out a press release about the Jubilee project.
Which nobody seems to
Examiner and Yorkshire Post,
Mm.
which we like to think they pick it up. But internally within the council world, it's also a shortened version has gone to the, what was it, YLCA?
NLCA.
NA,
What did you say?
National Association of Local Councils.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's literally 100 words but about the project, so that will get shared with other councils, so that's all about sharing.
And
Best
I'll
practices.
add it into that thing that they've asked us to undo that lot. Yeah.
So, apologies, we are 8 minutes over after that initial prompt. Can I just double check
Rush to
with
the
you,
end.
gentlemen, what this is? So thank you very much all for your inputs.
What's the date of the next meeting?
10th of October.
Right.
Hopefully we'll have some fresh-faced high school children to inspire us.